everyone, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Crowning Connections. Today, we are very lucky to have an amazing guest with us.
As always, we appreciate all the love and support. So, without further ado, Erin, would you like to introduce yourself and tell our listeners all about you?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on. I'm very excited. This is the first time I've ever done a podcast, too. So, this is a very cool experience for me. My name's Erin. I am a former two-time title holder with the Miss America organization, Opportunity. I was really someone who didn't have a lot of pageant experience when I first went in. I did my high school pageant just for fun, but I was never the person that people expected to do a pageant. So when I got a little bit older, I started grad school and I was looking for an organization or something to do that I felt like was a perfect fit for me and where I was in my life. And that's really what led me to the Miss America organization. I took about a year off from competing. So I've been sitting more so on the sidelines, cheering on my friends, kind of keeping up with all the things that are happening with the organization. But I more recently started a TikTok all for pageantry. It's Your Pageant Bestie. And that was just a way for me to share all that I've learned through pageantry because I felt like when I started not having the prior knowledge or family who knew how pageants worked, that it was sometimes really hard to find that information. So I really created that as a way to share what I've learned and also share with young women who are like myself, who are doing this fully financially on their own when you're working two jobs, going to school, who don't have that experience or are working two jobs and going to school. And so your schedule's a little bit busier. That's really something that I think I've found kind of a passion for too, is because I believe that pageantry should be available for everyone, regardless of your background, because there's so many benefits to it. Some might even be financial, like through scholarships. So why limit it to people because of who they are and where they come from? So I'm very just excited today to share more about that.
Well, it is amazing. We were reading over your bio and wow. Okay, so you have been a two-time title holder, the Miss America opportunity. So, how did pageantry first enter your life? And what kept you coming back to that?
I watched Miss America and Miss USA, Miss Universe every year. I feel like most women my age did growing up with their mom. But it was really once I started middle school or going into high school, some of the girls that I grew up with in Girl Scouts actually did our high school pageant. One of them even won. And from there, she was able to compete at Miss South Carolina's teen through the Miss America opportunity. And she was already just someone that I looked up to so much through Girl Scouting, but it was also someone who I felt like I could relate to that similar background. And she also didn't come from, a lot of money or anything. So it was just that first opportunity where I saw the organization more hands on too and had a better understanding of what it all really entailed. There, I was just like, well, I think I'm going to do my high school pageant. My mom was like, let's sit it out your first year of high school. Let's figure out if this is really what you want to do. We went and watched it. We sat down with the girl that I grew up with, had coffee a few weeks later, just asking more questions. And I think that that initial conversation with her is really what set me on this trajectory of wanting to be in pageants and loving the organizations and what they bring to young women. And just watching Miss America last night, even thinking about some of those things that she told me in that initial conversation and just really seeing how it all resonates now 10 years later with me and my experience in pageantry as a grown adult. But that's really where it all started for me. I competed three times, never won my high school pageant. But it was still fun regardless. I never
Yeah.
walked away upset or disappointed. I would have loved to win, but I just looked at it as an opportunity to do something new, something out of my comfort zone, and just learn and grow in that experience. And then, like I said, I went to grad school after college. And while I was graduating college, about to enter grad school that summer, another girl I grew up with in Girl Scouts who I competed my high school pageant with actually won Miss South Carolina. Her name's Jill Dudley, South Carolina 2022. And that I think was that real spark that pushed me into the Miss division.
Wow, that is so neat. So you actually are so you still talk to her, your friend Jill?
Yes, yes. The last time I competed at Miss North Carolina, like the week leading up to it, I sent her a message just saying, thank you for being kind of that role model for me. You really impacted me. And she sent back another, a meaningful message just of encouragement. And so it's just been interesting for to be able to support her through her journey and then for her to now support me through mine.
I see that you were a first generation college student. Is that correct? Can you
Yes.
tell us about a little bit about that and, kind of
Yeah.
what you majored in and why you chose what you chose and How does that feel to be a first generation college student?
Yeah. So I think for clarity for people listening, sometimes there's confusion on what being a first gen student means. And each university also has their different definitions, but generally it refers to students whose parents or guardians don't have that 4 year bachelor's degree. And so that applied to me. And I didn't even realize that I was a first generation student until about my second year of college. So that was also a wild realization for me that I had this identity that I didn't even know about. My sister, she's an older sister, she had gone to college, but her experience was different from mine as well. She started out at the community college at home and then transferred to the university that was just down the road from us as well. So for me, I was the first person in my family to go away to school, that 4 year university as a college freshman and have that full 4 year college experience. I think, like a lot of first generation students, you think that there's only a few options for what your career could be, doctor, lawyer, teacher. And I think I fell into that pretty easily. I went to college as a biology major, thinking I was going to leave as a doctor. And my whole path changed when I took General Chemistry 101 3 different times and could not pass.
Oh,
That was the wake up call that maybe this wasn't the right field for me, but I knew that I loved politics. We were going through a very interesting time in US politics as well. And it was just something that my family always talked about. It was our dinner table conversations every night where what's going on in the world and what politics looked like. So for me, it was a very easy transition to my major in political science, and that's what I got my bachelor's degree in. But as I got towards like my senior year of college, trying to figure out those next steps, I was involved in a few different organizations on campus. I was in Greek life. I worked at different offices on campus. But the main role for me, I became student body president of my university during my senior year. And that was such a unique opportunity. I went to college, I met student government my first year, loved what they did, thought I wanted to do it. But it was really that experience once I had my feet wet and were really in it that I learned what it was truly about. And from there, it kind of just opened the door for me to a career in higher education, working with college students, because the staff and faculty members that I got to work so closely in that role had a monumental impact on my experience, not just that year, but in the 3 years prior. But that was more of that experience where I got to see what they did every single day and really find that passion for wanting to work with students. Because I believe that college is the most pivotal point in a student's life, our traditional 18 to 22-year-old students. And to witness the growth and the experiences that students go through is just something that I'm very grateful for that I get to do every single day because I never realized the impact that it has on the individual in, that staff role. So just being able to share that experience with students and be a part of that journey for them is something that I really value and feel very lucky that I get to do every day. So I went on and got my master's in higher education, and now I work at one of our top public colleges in the US.
Wow, that's amazing. You're so accomplished. What
Thank
did
you.
that mean to your family for you to be a first generation college? I know they must be so proud of.
It's really interesting. My dad is also an immigrant from Turkey. So that experience, it was just like an added layer to that experience as well. My parents both have associate's degrees, but they had a different experience even getting those. My dad got his later in life once he got to the States. It was something my mom encouraged him to do. But to be able to go for me to get that 4 year degree was something that they always pushed for me. But I always felt that doubt of if it was right for me or if I was meant to do it, if I was worthy of doing that, because you don't have that experience, that support from your family. As much as they might encourage you to do it, they've never had that experience. And I just remember my first semester of college trying to register for my spring classes, and they all got filled up. And I called my mom, bawling my eyes out because I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. My advisor didn't prepare me for what would happen if your class is filled up. And she also said, I'm sorry, I just don't know how to help you. And so that was one of those moments where it's like, am I meant to be here? Because my friends weren't having this experience, but I was. And if I can't figure this out, maybe I just should go home. But my mom did what she could. She called, our student activities office at my college, just saying, my kid doesn't know who to go to. I don't know how to help her. And it was like another student who answered the phone and just gave my mom the advice that she then gave to me and the people to turn to. So that was just one example of those experiences that I had as a first generation student that I really wasn't prepared for, but I think fully encapsulates what that experience is like.
it's interesting, very interesting to hear that, your family, your dad's from Turkey,
Mhm.
and having that experience, not knowing what to do, but it also goes to show your character and what your parents instilled in you, that
Mhm.
resilience and grit to not give up when
Yes.
things got tough. And I think
Yes.
that's a huge lesson too. So,
Mhm.
kudos to you for not giving up and for being accomplished and as successful as you are. It's amazing.
And what I am really interested to hear about, and I know a lot of our listeners, especially those maybe considering college and they're not sure
Mhm.
where to go, can you tell us about elevatED?
Yes.
What inspired you to create this free college resource for students that are considering going to college?
Yes. So when I was a title holder in the Miss America opportunity, my second year, my community service initiative, or CSI platform, as it's more commonly referred to in pageantry, went by a different name, but it was still focused on that same mission of supporting students, empowering them to pursue higher education if that was their desired goal. But at that time, I didn't really have a concrete plan of how to accomplish that goal and meet that mission. I went to high schools, I talked to over 500 students, kind of giving them the basics of the steps to applying to college. But from there, I was knowing that I needed to do something a little bit more. So when I was done competing, finished off my final Miss America or Miss North Carolina competition, I thought back more of, this is something that means a lot to me and it goes beyond pageantry for me. And if I never compete with Miss America again, there's still so much that I want to do because there's students like myself who didn't have those resources. And it wasn't just my experience, but when I saw those 500 high school students in Title I high schools as well, who, for the first time realized that maybe going to college was that opportunity for them, it clicked for me that there needs to be more out there for our students and more accessible options. So I created elevatED. It's a free college resource collective. I've got a website, elevatED Uni. There's different resources for students, whether they're in high school thinking about college, currently in college, or getting ready to leave college and wanting to start those career steps as well. So there's just a ton of different resources, and everything on there is completely free. They're all made by me and things that I've learned from my experience, but I made sure that the resources that I were providing were free because I think that that is one of the biggest barriers that exist in education attainment that needs to be broken down. And so that's why I created this resource collective and made sure that it was accessible for students basically across the nation.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's a
Thank
great
you.
resource. A lot of people do give up because they
Mhm.
don't have those kind of information and they don't know where to
Mhm.
turn. It's a lot to take in. I always joke and say that I think the pressure that's put on an 18-year-old or 17, 18-year-old to go to college and to figure out
Exactly.
exactly what they want to do in those 4 years,
Mhm.
it's a lot. So having that resource and having it be a free resource, I think is fantastic and a great way to, encourage others to not give up and to follow their dreams.
Exactly.
What would you say, or maybe you have seen that are some of the biggest barriers that students considering higher education are facing today?
Right now, we know that the cost of college, it's beyond what financial aid can provide through Pell Grants or whatever other grants or scholarships offered by a university. And I think that that financial barrier is what's holding our students back the most from pursuing that education or getting to college and not continuing. So one of the resources that is on my website is a scholarship kind of database in a way, but a little bit more than that. So I've provided a few different options for scholarships for students. There's some great people through social media that I've met who make their own scholarship databases. I'm not the financial aid expert, so I'm not going to attempt to make something like that, but I'm going to point people in the right direction to trustworthy sources. So there's information on the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, scholarship databases, comparing the costs of college, considering your tuition, your room and board, the financial aid package that you might receive, and other opportunities to finance your education, whether that's through scholarships or work study, just whatever opportunities are available, because I don't believe that the financial situation a student is in should hold them back from education when education is the thing that can get them out of that financial situation.
That's a great point. I think probably one of the biggest challenges for people that, are even for those of us that are older and go to college, that's something the first
Mhm.
thing is, hey, what's the cost? What's involved? What by the time that from the time that I start until I'm finished, what's the total going to be?
Mhm.
And then, for older adults like myself that, have decided to still pursue that education. I think that's important. But, we're in a completely different place in life where we're not just starting out in a career. We're probably well established in whatever
Mhm.
that we're going to do, unless you're like me that does a little bit of everything. So what advice do you have for our listeners that are considering whether or not say that they want to go to college, but they're just not sure? What advice do you have? Where might be a good starting point for them?
I think it starts with researching your options. Like I mentioned earlier, when you're a first gen student like myself, you think there's like four options for careers, doctor, lawyer, whatever it might be. But considering the things that you enjoy doing now, things that you want to do maybe in the future, something that you see has longevity for you, because I think that helps our students figure out the route then from there. It might not be that 4 year bachelor's degree education. It might be an apprenticeship or it might be career and technical education. And I think that's where it gets confusing sometimes when I talk about elevatED. People think I'm saying we all got to go to a 4 year college and get a bachelor's degree. And that's not what I mean at all. I just love to see our students get that education beyond high school because it sets them up for a better future. It sets our society up for a better future as well. So, really, for our students who are considering it, but they're not sure what's the right path or if it's the path for them, think about what you want to do long term. Think about what options are available and don't just limit yourself to this idea that you have of higher education because there are plenty of options beyond that.
I love that you mentioned the trade because I
Hmm.
think there is a lot of pressure to attain these 4 year colleges and go get these 4 year colleges degrees.
Yes,
And that's not necessarily the case. Somebody can be just as successful in a trade school as they can.
exactly.
So I love to hear that because that's something we're teaching our kids is that, we don't
Hmm.
care where, if you want to go to a college or if you want to do a trade, just find something that you're passionate about.
Exactly.
Feels like you'll never like, it feels like you're not actually getting up and going to work every day. It's something that
Exactly.
you love and you enjoy doing. So, as
Mhm.
long as you're happy, and sometimes money doesn't equate happiness either. So,
Right.
find what you want to do to be happy and successful in your own way and something you
Right.
love.
Exactly. And, we're always going to need the plumbers, the electricians, the hair stylist. So that's why those degrees are just as valuable as my bachelor's in political science.
Yes, absolutely. Do you have a moment that you can pinpoint since you started Elevate ED? Have you is there a moment that has really stood out or been inspired? You felt really strongly, you've made a difference for someone there.
Yeah, I think when elevatED was in its former name, when I was still with the Miss America organization and I was presenting to those high school students, something that's really unique that we have here in North Carolina is what we call our North Carolina Promise Schools. So these are four colleges whose tuition is only $500 a semester. And I'm not originally from North Carolina. I moved here for grad school. I moved away for a year for a job and have been back because I just love the state of North Carolina and our system, our higher education system here. But these schools are something that are so unique, and I realized that a lot of students across the state didn't know about. So when I was in these specifically Title I high schools talking to students about their education options, I made it a point to bring up these four schools because I knew for some of these students, this might be the only option that they have. When I was done with one of my presentations, I had a student run up to the front of the auditorium where I was at, and he was like, seemed so frantic, but he was like, "Can you pull up your slides again? Like, what are the schools that are only $500?" And so, someone's got a laptop. We're trying to get everything open and flip through it really quickly. And he wanted to take a picture of it because he wanted to show his mom. He wanted to send it to his mom or go home and show her that there are schools that they could afford and that going to college was an option for him. And there's moments where I'm just like driving to work and I think about that specific moment and it can bring me to tears sometimes because I didn't know. I look across the auditorium at these kids. They look so bored. They don't want to be there. They don't care what I have to say. That's how I felt at first. But for that student to come up and that be a moment where he realized college is an option for him, there's not even words to describe that feeling. It was probably the most impactful moment that I've had so far.
I have to say you gave me goosebumps when I heard that. That is fabulous and so amazing. I think maybe some other states should kind of replicate what North Carolina has for education in that regard, because I
Yes.
think that more people would be
Hmm.
considerate if it was cheaper. But that's an amazing moment to highlight.
And like I said, there's times where I'm just in the car doing my dishes and I think about it and I just get like so overcome with emotion. And I never thought that I could have one of those moments. I hear people in pageantry talk about those moments that they have with their platforms or in appearances. And I just didn't know that that would happen to me one day. And so it's stuck with me ever since.
I think that's great. And I will say you are very well spoken.
Thank
Yes,
you.
you
I
are.
think at some point, because I know you're super busy, but
Yes.
even if you would do like quick little vignettes or little videos on your website, unless you already have that, that might be helpful too, because then people can kind of put a face to a name and they can kind of
Yeah.
say, or if you use LinkedIn, you can do that. I know somebody who does that. She's in
Hmm.
the insurance business and she does that. She
Yeah.
pops on and says like a quick 30-second little snippet about this
Hmm.
particular thing.
I have a TikTok and Instagram. It's basically the same as the website. It's
Yeah.
just at elevatED uni UNI. And I'm trying to get more back up into that. I took a
Yeah.
break with elevatED just to work on rebranding, building that website, building the content that's in it because it is a lot and it took
Yeah.
a lot longer than I thought it would. But yeah, I'm trying to build up that social media presence again because I'm Gen Z and I know that social media is almost the only way to reach Gen Z at this point.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We're like this podcast is pretty new, so we get it. We spent a lot
Yeah.
of time just trying, and we're still, it's early, this
Yeah.
is about our 11th episode, and so it's early, but you're right. It's a lot of work, and I think a lot of times we just think, oh, let's just stick a website up there and
Yes.
get a social
Yeah.
media page and you're good.
Right.
No, it's constant. It's never stopping.
Right.
We love it. We wouldn't change anything. We are happy to push all of that information and all of those.
Thank you so much.
Of course, of course,
Thank you so much.
of course. We gonna kind of flip over to the pageantry part of this now.
Yeah.
One thing Lindy and I know have talked about a lot with different pageant systems, and obviously, based on your bio, you get this too. You have
Mhm.
so many different types of systems, and there's all different cost involved in
Mhm.
different ones. Smaller ones are less expensive, but I think in a lot of cases, there's this preconceived notion about pageantry that it's just too expensive. People
Exactly.
maybe want to do it, but they can't afford to do it. And you are very open about the fact that you don't have to spend a ton
Exactly.
of money to compete. So what are your thoughts on that, Erin? Can you share a little bit about that? Why do you feel that way?
Well, we saw Miss America win last night in a $400 off the rack Jessica Angel gown. And I think that that proves that it's not about the money that you spend on the wardrobe. It's the woman you are and the woman that you show up as. And I think that was very evident just watching Miss New York through the week of the Miss America competition. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I think if I had that opportunity, I would have started in pageantry earlier or continued with it through high school, outside of my high school pageant, or through college. But I wasn't able to really start until I was at a time in my life where I was fully financially on my own. My parents tried to support in ways that they could. They would say, oh, we can throw $50 here for this, or maybe we can pay for this hotel room the weekend that you've got to go to your workshop weekend. But there was never that full financial commitment that I think a lot of other contestants have. And that's not to say that there is anything wrong with that. I think plenty of us who are on our own doing it wish we were in that position. I'm envious of girls because there are sometimes things that I would like or things that I would want to do, but it's just not financially feasible for me. But that's where I found that it's really important to be creative. So, one of the videos that I posted recently on my pageant TikTok was talking about my talent outfit that I wore my last year at Miss North Carolina that I basically had made for less than $200. And I think there's this, idea that your pageant wardrobe has to be custom made. It has to be thousands of dollars.
Yep.
But I basically had a custom made costume for $150. So it was just really important for me to be creative, use my resources wisely. That's part of like the Girl Scout law. I was a Girl Scout growing up. It's such a big part of my life, but use resources wisely was one of the biggest things I learned from that. So I bought, an $80 jumpsuit online, bought some fabric from Joanne Fabrics, which I wish was still around, found a seamstress who was very affordable and could do this custom work with me and just were able to make it. And it was something that really stood out. It was something that I felt like was the best fit for the talent piece that I played. I played violin and I could never find anything online exactly what I wanted, but I was able to make exactly what I wanted all on my own, basically.
And for a fraction of the price.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think you hinted at that. I also think it comes down to how it fits too. So you have this gorgeous outfit, but it's not tailored to you and to your body type,
Exactly.
that's a huge red flag. So being able to have that tailored and, again, you're accomplished, you play the violin. Do you still play?
I try to. I try to practice a little bit here and there just to not lose it fully.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to
That's
have her on to play violin for us on an episode.
I'd love to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be great. And it piqued my interest because my daughter has shown interest in playing the violin. So
Do
anytime we
it.
say, anytime she sees like she's like, "Oh, can I do it?" And we're like, "Okay, well, you can't do everything all the time." So we're
Yes.
slowly easing her into possibly doing the violin. But
But
it's
I
such
think my experience with violin too is like one of those like foreshadowing moments for how I approach pageantry. Because my first violin I got when I was in the third grade, but it was something my parents bought at a pawn shop for like $80. It's not the best quality violin, but I wanted to learn how to play so bad. And they also couldn't afford to put me in lessons. So thankfully for YouTube, I was able to like learn a little bit. It wasn't great, but by the time I got to middle school and there was orchestra classes and I could really learn how to play, I had a little bit of an idea of what was going on. But again, an $80 instrument and YouTube videos is really how I started.
awesome.
I know, I'm just floored. I am, like, floored. Wow. Need to get you set up with my little guy. He's trying to learn to play a guitar
Yeah.
now, and daughter-in-law's trying to teach him over the weekend, and he's, like, doing some stuff with the piano, but you're right. She was like, "There's some great videos if you know someone that teaches it," and then here you are telling us that's exactly how you learned it.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
exactly.
So do you actually work too with contestants that are considering entering a pageant? Do you have any that you coach or that, you try to help out?
Not that I coach. I don't think that I see myself as someone who would coach one day. I think because when you coach, you can't judge. And I would love to be on the judges' side of the table. I think it's very, very interesting. But I do try to, if there's someone, especially on social media and with my pageant TikTok, who reaches out and says, I'm interested, but I don't really know what this all entails. And I don't feel like I can do it because I'm not a certain size or I don't have a lot of money. I tend to, just have those general conversations with people and give more so guidance than coaching. And then this year that I didn't compete in pageants, I was helping some a local organization with some of their girls with mock interviews, but that was just purely from my experience. And like I said, I'm someone who loves politics, so I'm very into the current events. So that was my strength that I could bring to those mock interviews to really help those girls out.
That's great. And you're having crazy great success with your pageant talk.
Yes, I'm shocked.
150,000 impressions, and how long have you
Yeah.
had it?
I started it, I think, beginning of June.
And find out
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you find is the most exciting content? Like, what do you really enjoy creating and putting out there for your viewers?
That is a really great question. I feel like I put out a little mix of different things. Sometimes I try to go with trends or like trending audios because that's really how you get a lot of traction on TikTok. But I really do love the videos where I'm sharing like my experience or my perspective. And so I mentioned the video about my talent outfit. I've talked about video or not videos, outfits that I've worn for pageant appearances or at pageants that I bought at Ross is very underrated. A lot of people talk about TJ Maxx, Marshalls. Go to Ross. I also talk about like pageant outfits I've found in thrift stores. I go thrifting a lot. It's like a hobby for me. But I think that people often don't think of a thrift store. They have a negative perception of thrifting. And I can tell you, I found some beautiful dresses, beautiful evening gowns. You just have to be looking for the right thing at the right time and you'll come across it. So, kind of sharing those things too. I like sharing those tips with people because I think it reinforces that point that pageantry doesn't have to be expensive or exclusive.
Right. Well, obviously you're doing something right. 250,000 impressions. That's
Thank you.
amazing. Congratulations on what an
Thank you.
achievement. I just know like I said, we're still in that very early phase of trying to grow and get out there. So you're an inspiration to us that
Thank you.
we're very close to the same time.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. We'll definitely have to repost each other's things and get each other out there. Yeah.
Absolutely, we can do that.
So what is one piece of advice somebody gave you before, during your pageant, or, even with your education? What is the one piece of advice that has always stuck with you?
I think when it comes to pageantry, and I was literally talking to my mom about this an hour ago on the phone. We were talking about Miss America last night. And that conversation I had with the girl that I grew up with, who was my high school pageant queen, the thing that she told me that we hear all the time, but it stuck with me the most. And I think it was the most important thing for me to hear at that time when I had no pageant experience whatsoever is that pageants are subjective. And I think that sometimes people who don't really live in that pageant world or have been exposed to pageantry sometimes don't understand that. They think that it's very cut and clear. This person had this, this, and this. They should have won. But again, it's up to your judges. It's up to the day of the week sometimes. It's up to maybe how you're feeling or how the judges are feeling. There's so many things that you cannot dictate in pageants that ultimately lead to the outcome. And you have to be willing, as someone who sometimes has struggles with wanting to control things, let it go. You just have to let it go and just let it all play out the way that it's supposed to. I know, I posted a TikTok today because there's a lot of hate out there for our new Miss America saying she shouldn't have won, should have been this person looked better. But I think that it could have been anyone's game. It could have been any of the 52 women up there. You had three separate judging panels. You had Miss New York, who technically didn't even win her state title originally this year. She was the first runner up. The original Miss New York had to step down and she stepped up in the place. But she went out there and she won. And I think it's just proof that there is no predicting how pageantry will turn out. And you just have to go with the flow. And I think that that ends up leading into the other parts of my life of I can't control this situation. I can't control this interaction. I just need to learn how to go with the flow.
Absolutely. I think we've talked about that a lot too, how, you're right. You can have one set of judges on Monday and they will
Mm-hmm.
come up with a totally different set of results than a different set on Tuesday. So it's
Exactly.
all in what they're looking for at that moment. So I think it serves as a reminder. We just need to always go and put our best foot forward, be the best version of ourselves. And as long as you go out and you leave it all on the table, you've done your job, and
Exactly.
there's so much more than just getting the crown put on your head. At least that's
Exactly.
how I have always felt about it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've said this a million times and people probably get tired of it, but it's so true. Like that's how I met Lindy. I wouldn't trade anything, even if I had not won that pageant. I would have never traded it for having her friendship. Like she
Exactly.
for my entire life. So she's really the best thing that came out of that experience, or even above the top. When the pageant's over, like these sisterhood friendships are still there.
Yes, because the reality is only one person's walking away with the crown. What are you walking away with? And it's friendships, it's scholarships, it's job skill set, people skills.
Yes.
Some girls are terrified to step out on stage, but they overcome that fear and talk in front of a crowd of 100 people. And that's something that they can walk away with and be proud of. And so I think it's really important to focus on those things that you walk away with outside of the sash and the crown and the prize package.
I always said it's always nice to be dressed up and have the pretty gown and the crown,
Yeah,
but the real work starts after, and actually should
and
start before you take that stage to set the precedent for what you're going to do as soon as you do
exactly.
win. But yeah, the
Right.
friendships I have, like with Jen and things, I wouldn't trade that. It's been a blessing that,
Hmm.
sometimes you don't really know that you need. And I think even with Miss New York's case last night, it was the right opportunity at the right time and everything panned
Exactly.
out. And you don't always know that when you go
Exactly.
in, but you have to have that mindset of, I'm here to have fun. I'm here to make friends.
Hmm.
I'm here to, just enjoy what this experience can bring me in the long run.
And what an amazing opportunity for
Yeah.
her, to be able to go into that and then come out, and win it all.
Top of it
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's incredible. I mean, I think she's phenomenal. I think she's
I
going
do
to have a
too.
fantastic year, and
I agree.
congratulations to her. I mean, to all the ladies, what a fantastic job. I mean, it
It was a tough competition at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't really fully guess what a top 10 would look like. There's always, you just never know. And we never know what the Miss America organization itself is looking for either in a title holder. That information's not public to all of us. So she might fit the bill perfectly, or it could have been, a different judge's charge, a different girl, who knows? But I think she's wonderful. I think she'll do a wonderful job as Miss America. And I think that this is a fantastic story, not just for people involved in pageantry, but in life, to show that no doesn't mean never. It's just not right now. And in the right timing, it's meant for you.
Once heard someone at a pageant actually say some almost those exact words. She said, "What is meant for you will
Hmm.
be."
Hmm.
And it's so true, and I think that's something, especially competing, we need to all remember that, and when it is your time, it will be your time,
Exactly.
and there is a time for everything. It was her time to shine, and,
It was.
she stepped gracefully right into
Hmm.
that role, and she went and made her state proud, and she'll make her country proud now.
Definitely.
So, do you have for you, what is
Hmm.
next? I mean, you've done it all. You've got the higher education, you work with students,
Yeah.
you've got pageants, you've got your own collective for college. What is next on Erin's plate? Or
That's a great question. I, stopped competing in pageants or the Miss America organization last summer. Shortly after Miss North Carolina started a new job in Georgia, and I was living there for a year. And for me, people ask, "Well, are you going to go compete at Miss Georgia? Like, that would be so great." And I'm like, "Hey, people, I just moved 2 states away. I've got like $5 in my bank account right now. Like, just trying to get my life on track again and
Yeah.
work my first professional full time job." So over the last year, I've really kind of tried to figure out, like, what does life look like for me long term? Like, what fills my cup? Like, what makes me happy? What do I find, success in? And if I decided to go back and compete in pageantry, I knew that I wanted to take this year, or, the next 2 years, to figure out what are things that I can do in my everyday life that let me show up in the pageant space as a better version of myself. I think that we lose focus on preparing for that pageant, doing the mock interviews, doing the walking practice, that there are so many things outside of just the practice that impact your performance. And so, if that's something that I decide to pursue in the future, it's still something I'm kind of wavering on and figuring out if it's still right for me at this time in my life. I just wanted to be able to know that I was doing the things ahead of time to show up in the best way that I could. That doesn't answer the question fully, but that's kind of just what I've been thinking lately, pondering on.
well,
Well,
if you do, you've got our support.
that's
We'll be cheering
Thank
you on.
you. Thank you.
and I think you said at some point you wanna be a judge, so that's, like, on your bucket
Yes.
list too. So,
Yes.
so there's
Yes.
lots of things, just, but I think overall you have a great upbeat personality and
You.
spirit, and
Thank you.
you've definitely have proven yourself to you yourself in a way, like you have the
Mhm.
grit, you have that resilience to do what I like to say is grow forward, because
Mhm.
that's what you do is you take an opportunity and you learn from it, and it's not about getting to that desired result, it's about that journey
Exactly.
that's in between. So again, I think you have a lot of those characters, and
Thank
we
you.
definitely can look forward to
Thank you.
seeing you shine bright
Thank
in
you so much.
however that will look like, for
I
sure.
appreciate that so much. Yeah, it's interesting, we connect through the world of pageantry, but there's all those life lessons outside of it that we all talk about and can share in and really experience, that I think is what kind of puts that like perfect bow on pageantry, of it's not just a gown or an award, but it's all these other things. So,
It is. It's so that's with this podcast, a lot of people, I think, and because it's crowning connections,
mhm,
a lot of people are always under the
Yeah.
misconception that, well, it's a pageant podcast, and it is, but it's so much bigger than that. Like you said, it's about
right.
all of these stories. It's about sharing, and getting the word out, making the connections with people that you
Mhm,
otherwise not have the opportunity to do. And so we're just really blessed that we're in a position to be able to do that, and that it's growing at the rate that it's growing. And
yeah.
that's of guests like you that are willing
Thank you.
and share and be so open about your personal stories and what's important to you, and we appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having
Thanks.
me. I'm just really appreciative of the opportunity. I think sometimes when you're not, you're the former in the pageant world, that it's hard to feel like maybe there's still value in what you've gained or what you can give to the organization or pageantry in general. So I really appreciate the opportunity just to kind of share more about me and my experience, and really what I want to do to help other young women. because, like I said, I don't think that anything should hold young women back or women of any age from competing in pageants because there is so much to gain.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there are so many different opportunities in pageants too, what might speak to your heart, today, but
Exactly.
wouldn't necessarily have spoken to you 2, 3 years ago either. So,
Hmm.
as you evolve even in your career, you'll see those changes and those pathways open up too, and I think
Yeah.
that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting journey
Yeah.
and it's full of a lot of unexpected twists and turns, but it's interesting how even life beyond it is still impacted by what you experienced in it.
That's right. And it can have happened years ago, and then all of a sudden
Hmm.
something pops up and you're like, "Oh, I remember that when," and you can
Yeah,
listen right back to it. So it's incredible.
yeah, definitely.
Is there anything in closing that you would like to share with our listeners or young ladies that are out there listening to you?
I think there's a few different things I think that I would want to share. I think for people who are considering pageantry, it's one of those things that I say, like, just do it. Like, just take that step. It doesn't have to be a Miss America pageant as much as I, love the organization and been a part of it. I think that there's a right fit for everyone in pageantry. And it might not be Miss America for someone, or it might be that. But if that's something you're interested in, like, go for it, try it. And for the people who are currently involved in pageantry, really remember your why and remember who you are. We are quick to compare ourselves to others and judge others as well. And I think the most important thing is to know that you are being true to yourself and you are being kind to yourself and kind to others. Because when you walk away and you look back on that experience, you'll remember those things. You'll remember how you felt about yourself and the way you treated other people. So just remember to be kind to yourself and to others.
I love it. We are just so thankful to you for taking the time to
Thank you.
join us and come on and again share your story with everyone. That means everything to us.
I just wanted to tell you just keep shining bright because you are
Yeah.
definitely that beacon of light for others. And,
Thank you.
especially for both your references for your pageant bestie and then for, your higher ed information that you're having, those
Yeah.
are truly amazing resources that people
Thank
should
you.
look for. And, and I hope you can continue to grow those as well, because I think it'll definitely take off even more than it has already.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And
And, if my pageant journey changes in the next month or year, maybe we can sit down and do this conversation again.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
As soon as it does, you just let us know. You know how to
Of
find.
course, I will.
And also too, if and when you do compete again,
Hmm.
just let us know that too. So if it might
I
not be
will.
like, so we can kind of follow you and be like, hey, we had her on this episode. You
Yeah.
guys make sure you show her support and everything. So we'll definitely do that for you too.
Thank you. I'll keep you in the loop for sure.
You're not too far from me. I'm just in Virginia, so we're just a state away. So
Perfect.
yeah, you're driving
Yeah.
distance to me. So we can
Yes,
always
definitely.
come out and support you. So
Yes.
Thank you. I really appreciate
oh,
it.
of course. Well, on that note, we'll go ahead and close out this edition of Crowning Connections. Erin, thank you so much again for coming on and sharing with our listeners today. It means everything to us that you're willing to give us a little bit of your time. Lindy, my sweet co host, thank you for being able to push through, and we will see you all soon for the next edition of Crowning Connections. Until then, be blessed.